Hey there guys, I am the Sixth Machine and welcome back to another Warhammer video. So today we're going to be taking a look at one of the best HQ units on offer for the Dark Angels, and honestly, one of the better HQ units in the entire game, in my opinion, thanks to a huge amount of flexibility and potency both in combat, shooting, and his ability to buff other units. We are of course talking about the Ravenwing Talonmaster. So if you've ever seen a Ravenwing list or know much about the Dark Angels, you have probably heard about the Talonmaster. He is the de facto go-to warlord for the majority of Ravenwing lists, even outdoing the great Samael himself in terms of overall use as a warlord. The Talonmaster is the Dark Angel's specific land speeder character and can be made using the generic land speeder kit and the Dark Angels biker kit, which oddly enough comes with all the parts you need to add his specific loadout and unique bling. Once again, we're going to take a look at his stat line and then go through his defenses and offensive output, and then take a look at some stratagems, relics, and warlord traits that really go well with him. So first off, let's take a look at his stat line, and as you can see, as far as characters go, he is a bit of a beast. He comes in at 160 points, which isn't cheap, but compared to a lot of other Space Marine HQs out there, you do get a lot of bang for your buck. He has a standard HQ 2+ weapon and ballistic skill to go along with his marine strength of 4, but his toughness is a mighty 6, and he comes stock with 8 wounds, 3 attacks, and an average 3-up save. So whilst he loses out on the save and attacks front compared to some of the other more beat stick oriented characters that Marines can take, he really is very survivable with his toughness 6 and his 8 wounds to back him up. The other absolutely major point on his stat line is his absolutely incredible 18-inch movement, which I believe is one of the fastest in the entire game, even outpacing some of the Eldar Jetbike characters who have a movement of 16. So he is a speedy little fella, and you can pretty much guarantee that if you need him somewhere on the board to charge or shoot something or to support another squad, he can pretty much guaranteed to be there within a turn. To further boost his survivability, he does have the Ravenwing keyword and the Jink special rule, so he is flying around with a 5-up invulnerable against shooting as long as he doesn't stay still, and if you do advance him, that does get improved to an Iron Halo level 4-up invulnerable save, which is very nice. Obviously not having the 4-up all the time and his 5-up invulnerable being reliant on him moving and only being relevant against shooting is quite a bit of a downside if you want to send this guy into combat, especially compared to most other characters that have a 4-up invulnerable all the time built into their profile. But I still think that the extra 2 points of toughness and the good extra couple of wounds compared to a lot of other Space Marine HQs does set you in a good place for your overall survivability over the course of the game with this guy. You may also notice that he does have the Inner Circle keyword, which would be absolutely incredible on him, but do be aware that Inner Circle says it only works for infantry, so no, your Talonmaster isn't running around with permanent transhuman. I'm sorry. When I first saw it on Black Knights, I nearly had a heart attack too, but alas, it's not the case. Still, for 160 points, he nets you a decent level of survivability compared to a lot of other choices in the game, and as mentioned, he is by far one of the most, if not the most, maneuverable HQs, certainly for Marines, and arguably for any army in the game at the moment. So he has a lot going for him in terms of surviving or avoiding those risky combats you may not want to get him involved in. But what about his offensive output? Well, whilst most HQs for Marines can do melee pretty well, they quite often lack a little something in the ranged department, usually just carrying a bolt pistol or some other relatively unexciting weapon. But oh no, not the Talonmaster. So we'll look at the melee front first, seeing as Marine HQs, as I said, do tend to do better in this arena. He isn't exactly spectacular, but again, he isn't terrible. His 160 points bring with him a power sword, which with the new rules in 9th edition are +1 strength, so he is hitting at strength 5, -3 AP and 1 damage. With his weapon skill of 2-up and with Angels of Death, that does mean that on the charge, he's making 4 attacks at that profile, so I mean, Yeah, he's no Ragnar or Mephiston or even Azrael, but that being said, he really can avoid most of the combats you don't want him in with his 18-inch movement, so you more than likely wouldn't go charging him into a unit of Thunderhammer Stormshield Terminators. But what he can do is a passable job of bullying small enemy units off of objectives or harassing backline long-range squads like heavy weapons teams or Dark Reapers. But where the main power of the Talonmaster lies is of course in his shooting, where you get an incredibly impressive amount of firepower for his points. His land speeder, unlike the regular one that Marines can take, comes stock with not only a new and improved twin heavy bolter, 2 damage in all, but also a twin assault cannon. So as he moves around the board, his 18 inches, you can essentially be pouring out 6 Strength 5 -1 AP 2 damage shots and a further 12 Strength 6 -1 1 damage shots at Ballistic Skill 2. He is a vehicle, so he doesn't suffer the penalty for moving and firing his guns, and so he is always using his base 2-up ballistic skill, which, when you think about it, is a frankly absurd amount of shots, and if you're in the Devastator Doctrine, as you would be turn 1, it leads to about 4 dead Marines or nearly 10 dead Orc boys. And even against vehicles like Predators and Rhinos, he can do some work, taking off between 4 and 5 wounds in a single shooting phase from them. So, I mean, yeah, on his own, he can definitely do a lot of damage to quite a range of targets from, dug in Marines, to hordes, to even some light anti-vehicle work. But even then, the Talonmaster hasn't shown off all of his tricks yet. He also comes with 2 very, very tasty buffing abilities for his allies as well. It's worth remembering that the Talonmaster is effectively a lieutenant, so as you would expect, he has the tactical precision rule, which enables a friendly core unit within 6 inches to reroll wound rolls of 1, which in itself is really handy to have, making sure that your bolter shots from your Ravenwing bikers are that little bit more effective, or ensuring that your overcharged shots from your Black Knight's plasma talons can be almost guaranteed to wound Marines and the like. And in fact, he has a very nice synergy with Black Knights and the Dark Angels' specific Weapons of the Dark Age stratagem, which can mean that your overcharged plasma is wounding Terminators on 2s, rerolling 1s, and then doing a flat 3 damage, which, I'll be honest, is one of the most effective ways that I've seen of getting through the terror of the new 3 wound Terminators. And on top of that reroll wound rolls of 1 bonus that the Talonmaster has, he also has been unique among lieutenants in the game in that he brings another buff to the table too, specifically the no escape ability, which allows him to select 1 visible enemy unit and then Ravenwing core units, so not all Dark Angel units, just Ravenwing core, within 6 inches of the Talonmaster can shoot at that unit and it gains no benefit from cover for its saving throw. So if you have a unit which is dug into cover and you absolutely need to get rid of it, or at least soften it up before you charge it in the following charge phase, you can nominate it and then all of your shots are effectively gaining an extra pip of AP against them by ignoring their cover bonus. With the levels of terrain and cover on the table in 9th edition, this ability is really, really powerful, and it's one you absolutely shouldn't forget to use. There is almost always going to be 1 or 2 targets in front of your lines which are getting cover, and being able to pull those 2-up save Marines back to their 3-up will make a huge difference to the number of wounds you can get through. Your bikers will absolutely love this in Tactical Doctrine, with their bolters not only gaining that extra AP anyway, but then ignoring the defensive bonus, meaning that you could be shooting at Marines in cover and they would only get a 4-up save instead of the 2-up that they may have been expecting. It really is an absolutely fantastic little tool to have in your toolkit. So the Talonmaster then, from both a defensive and an offensive point of view, is, in my opinion, one of the best HQs, not only for a pure Ravenwing list, but even in a regular Dark Angels list. He really does bring some excellent firepower, and the Lieutenant buff, as I said, is always a decent one to have in your back pocket. But is that all he can bring? Well, no, we're not quite finished yet. As mentioned, he is a member of the Ravenwing, so some of the unique Ravenwing stratagems do benefit him as well. I'm just going to go through a couple that I really like the look of here, although with the number of stratagems the Dark Angels got in their supplement, not to mention the main Marine Codex, there are undoubtedly other combinations which may prove just as effective on the battlefield. The first is the Hunt stratagem, which costs 2 command points but allows you to, at the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, to select a Ravenwing unit from your army, and it can make a normal move as if it were your movement phase, but cannot end within 9 inches of an enemy unit. Now imagine you'd deployed and your Talonmaster was out in the open and your opponent got the first turn. You could easily use this to just zip your Talonmaster out of line of sight and keep him safe from enemy shooting, having used him to perhaps bait out some of your enemy's heavier shooting towards a certain part of the board. Or consider what you could do if you got first turn with this pre-game move. You would essentially be able to get all the way up to 9 inches away from an enemy unit, and then in your movement phase you'd get your 18-inch move all over again. You could, in all likelihood, make a beeline for almost any enemy unit on the entire board and get yourself in a position to not only unleash all your firepower into a target of your choice, but also pretty much guarantee you a turn 1 charge into practically any enemy unit you wanted to. And what I really love about this is how well it synergizes with one of my other favorite stratagems, the Swift Strike ability. Now this also costs 2 command points for the Talonmaster, so it is a pricey combination, but what Swift Strike allows you to do is, after a Ravenwing unit in your army has fought, i.e. your Talonmaster, if you are in engagement range you can fall back as if it were the movement phase, or if you're not in engagement range because say you've killed your enemy, you can just make a normal move. So consider it, you use the Hunt to move up the board, then in your movement phase you move to just outside an inch of a key enemy unit or character in the enemy's army, and then you charge in, and if you kill him, you're now stuck deep in the enemy lines, and if you don't kill him, well, you're screwed, as he's probably about to swing back and do some serious damage to you. But no, you use Swift Strike as soon as you fought, and off you go. You got a nice cheery 18-inch move with an advance as well if you aren't in engagement range, meaning that you can essentially get all the way back to your deployment zone for Lookout Sir protection. And all the while your opponent hasn't even been able to swing, as your Talonmaster has rode up, shot 18 shots into his line, charged in with some potentially nasty melee attacks, and then just got the heck out of dodge. It is incredibly potent, and I'll be honest, it's just a little bit trolley, which I absolutely love. I can't wait to use it and see the look on my opponent's face as they take all this damage and then don't even get a chance to swing back before I've flown way back to my lines. Now, as we covered before, the Talonmaster can make a very good Warlord, and the Dark Angels do have some incredibly good Warlord traits. So if you were to take him as your Warlord, what could you go for? It all depends if you want to make him killier, or just make him even more difficult to kill, or if you want to make him even better at buffing. Traits like lightning fast reactions, giving him a -1 to hit, really will combine well with his toughness 6 and 8 wounds to make him a really big challenge for the enemy to get rid of, as it works both against shooting and in melee. So it also somewhat counters his lack of an invulnerable in combat, not completely, but it's a nice little thing to have when you don't have an invulnerable in combat. Equally, traits like Decisive Tactician seem almost tailor-made for Ravenwing, giving an aura of +1 advance and charge to core units around him, meaning your bikers can be even more swift as they race up the board to bring their guns to bear and make some good charges. Likewise, a trait like Fury of the Lion could be fantastic when coupled with units like Black Knights, bringing them to strength 6 on the charge, making it that much easier for them to chew through not only large hordes of toughness 3 models, but also giving you that much better chance to wound against those toughness 5 and toughness 6 targets that I think Black Knights and Ravenwing in general tend to struggle with in melee. Overall, I do genuinely think that the Dark Angel Warlord traits are some of the best in the game right now, and having essentially 8 that you can choose from, because obviously he can't take the Deathwing ones, means that you can really tailor your Talonmaster to fill any role that you need him to, be that being a better killer himself, or buffing your Ravenwing units, or just, making him more survivable. Last, but honestly by no means the least, there are also some very, very potent relics that the Talonmaster has access to, which, again, can completely change how you use him. The first and possibly least interesting that I'm going to talk about is the Shroud of Heroes, which, much like the Warlord trait, grants you a -1 to be hit by enemy attacks. This would be incredible if negatives to hit could stack like they did in 8th, as with this and the Warlord trait, your Talonmaster would be -2 to hit from everything, which, you know, is incredibly strong. As it is, it's nice and certainly could be useful in keeping him alive a little bit longer, but I do think that overall this is probably the least likely relic you're going to take on your Talonmaster. But still, it's nice to know that it's there, and if you do ever feel like your Talonmaster is a bit too flimsy for your tastes, that is an option for you to take if you wanted to take a different Warlord trait. One that I like personally a lot is the Heavenfall Blade. As I said in my Dark Angels supplement overview video, I've always loved this weapon and I tend to take it whenever I can. And now the Talonmaster specifically can take it, buffing his power sword from strength 5 -3 AP and 1 damage to a mighty strength 6 -4 AP and 2 damage, as well as granting him an extra attack. As I mentioned in my other video, this sword makes characters absolute marine killers, and the Talonmaster is no exception. It gives him 5 attacks on the charge, hitting on 2s, wounding marines on 3s, and then immediately bypassing their 3-up save and doing a flat 2 damage. So realistically, you could be killing sort of at least 3 or 4 marines from a squad, which, you know, after you've unleashed your heavy bolter and assault cannon shots into them in the shooting phase, could easily mean that your Talonmaster could potentially take out 20 wounds of Primaris Intercessors in a single turn, which is, let's be honest, fantastically good output. But still, that's not the relic that everyone is going wild about. No. That spot is reserved for the Arbiter's Gaze. Now, if you've heard of this, it's probably because someone has mentioned it in like correlation with a Talonmaster. This relic is just, it's incredible. It's a very shooting oriented relic, which is why most people I don't think would ever consider giving this to any other characters. As I said, normally Space Marine characters have pretty mediocre or just plain bad shooting with a bolt pistol or something like that, but this specifically states it can be given to a Talonmaster, and for good reason. With his very impressive shooting, this relic just propels him way up into the stratosphere. Not only do enemies not get the benefit of cover against his shots when he takes this relic, which essentially gives him his own no escape ability permanently on himself, but also when he's making an attack, a 2-up always hits irrespective of modifiers. Now I know what you're thinking, wait a minute, he already hits on 2s, like that doesn't seem all that great, really. It's true, he does, but gotta consider a couple of things. Not only is he a vehicle with heavy weapons, which means in melee he can shoot his guns, but normally when vehicles shoot heavy weapons in melee, they're a -1 to hit, so this negates that negative. Not only is there quite a lot of -1 to hit around the game at the moment in the form of flyers, psychic powers, terrain, and that sort of thing, so again, this negates that, but, and here's the big thing, the Arbiter's Gaze also states that this 2+ to hit all the time includes Overwatch. Yep, the Talonmaster with this relic overwatches with all of his firepower on 2s. He is quite possibly the best charge deterrent you will find in the game right now. A squad of assault intercessors attempting to charge him will likely take around 4 or 5 unsaved wounds from his shooting, meaning that possibly 2 or 3 die as they charge in, which is absolutely huge, potentially making their charge much harder or even impossible, and at the very least meaning that your charged unit has a lot less attacks incoming from the enemy. Put it another way, if you're getting charged by a squad of Gene Stealers, you can expect over 6 of them to be killed as they rush into your lines. It is quite frankly an incredible relic for making sure that every single shot from your Talonmaster meets its target, and as I said, with him having such generally so potent shooting, it really is a terrifying prospect for a unit to attempt to charge a Talonmaster when they know they have this relic, whether it's sort of hordes of infantry or even like elite infantry. You know, you still don't want to be taking heavy bolter and assault cannon shots hitting on 2s. The fact that it basically gives him a second shooting phase where he is still operating at maximum capacity is just like absolutely incredible. And you almost have to consider the fact that it also allows him to shoot into combat or shoot at flyers or things that have psychic powers on, you know, with his normal 2-up anyway, as almost just the gravy on top. The main reason you take this is for that Overwatch ability. It is just such a great way to deter enemy units from charging you. And to be honest, when you're playing Ravenwing with your bikers, you want to be making charges. You don't really want to be getting charged, because bikers can die quite quickly. You want to be getting your attacks in before the enemy gets to swing back. So deterring enemies from potentially making those charge moves really can save your Ravenwing and stop you know losing a game because you get charged by a big squad of enemy assault infantry. So that's it, that's the Talonmaster. As I said at the beginning of the video, I do genuinely think he is one of the best HQs in the game at the moment. He's not the killiest, not the most survivable, and possibly not even the shootiest compared to some Xenos HQs, but he just brings together so much speed, mobility, survivability, buffing ability, as well as some very, very solid damage output in a package which really isn't too pricey. So I really personally cannot imagine building a Ravenwing list without a Talonmaster in. They are just such a huge force multiplier for the second company, and you know, on top of that, they look cool as heck too. So that is it from me, but what do you make of the Talonmaster? Do you bring him in your Ravenwing lists? What about in your Greenwing or your Mixed Wing lists? And let me know if you have faced the Arbiter's Gaze before. Was it as scary as it sounds, or did you find that it didn't quite live up to its potential? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will catch you later, guys.